all for walking, crawling, and wheeling yourselves in here for the night. Don't mess with me or you're going to have to mess with him in the back right there. How are you?
How are you, sir?
Good.
Welcome. So first things first, I have a gift for you.
You have a gift?
I have a gift.
Is it a good one?
I hope you enjoy it. Now, I told you about it.
If it's in Vegas, it better stay there.
Right. I told you about this item that I had, God, maybe like a year ago. But I went out and I dug it out and I found it. So when I was 10 or 11 years old, I marched into the Scholastic Book Fair with my $10 and proudly bought Jokes.
Oh my God.
And I wanted to have
Oh, that's so great.
Yes.
Nothing like this. Told by the crypt keeper, the vault keeper, and the old witch, you'll die. Let's see, we have to do a couple.
From 1993, y'all.
Let's see. Greetings and salutations, boils and kills. It's nice to have you in our clutches again, because we have something to tell you. Something very important. It has recently come to our attention that you consider us creepy, that you think the three of us are a moldy old bunch of perverts who sit around all day, putrefying and growing fungus and being boring. Yes, we do. Well, we're here to tell you that you are wrong. In fact, you have made a grave error. Perhaps there is a fungus among us. Maybe there is a mold in our fold. And perhaps we are odoriferous and ugly. But boring? Never. I love that.
Yeah, read it. Just think around and joke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why did the Cyclops give up teaching? Because he only had one pupil. What do you call a mortician's place of business? A box office. Let's see. I just had a wart removed from my nose. Have a scar? No, thank you, I don't smoke. That's bad. The crypt keeper couldn't make that one work. Let's see. What did the mortician sing after a particularly nice funeral? Oh, what a beautiful morning. What happened to the girl who swallowed the spoon? Ooh, she didn't stir. Crickets. These are jokes, folks. These are jokes.
They're jokes for a fourth grader, though.
What did the missionaries give the cannibals? Their first taste of Christianity. That's a good one. That's amazing.
I hope you enjoy it.
I will.
Add it to your collection.
I will. It's amazing because I got to meet. Thank you. Don't hold back. It's amazing because I pretty much got to meet each and every one of you this weekend. I always love that when we're at one of these conventions and it's just not all transient faces that we actually get to hang out a little bit. Got to talk to everybody. It was a lot of fun for me. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm a huge horror fan as a kid. And I collected Tales from the Crypt comic books. I probably had a number of pre-code comics that my mother unwittingly gave away to some kid down the street, not knowing that she gave away my college education.
Did you have any particular favorite story from the comics?
There was this one that was about, and I don't think we never did it as an episode. I couldn't tell you what the name of the episode was. I just remember that it had a see-through casket where the guy could see out, and he was he was alive and nobody knew that. Everybody thought he was dead because he was, in some kind of suspended thing. And I remember that really darkly, over the years. But I used to love Alfred Hitchcock Presents. That was such a good show because he was kind of like the crypt keeper, wasn't he? He was always telling you back. It was the whole deal. The crypt keeper was,
Our favorite hosts.
Yes. I was honored at a number of years ago at the Cincinnati Horror Hound. They have the Horror Host Hall of Fame there in Cincinnati. I didn't even know it existed, and they surprised me by inducting me into the Horror Host Hall of Fame. It's so totally cool. I got to meet all the, Dr. Creepy and all these people who were nationally known and locally known horror hosts from all over the United States and the world. They were all there to, induct me into their club.
That's amazing. Did they have Spenguli there?
They did have Spenguli there. Yes, it's one of my favorites for sure.
For sure. And I live in Chicago, so it's part of my main viewing. Since I live there.
Excellent.
Yes. Okay, so I could talk to you about everything for forever, but I'm going to give them a chance right now. Do we have any audience questions? Yes.
Yeah.
When the Stephen King film known as Creepshow came out and he made his own horror movie comic or whatever, what did you think about that, especially when they finally made a Creepshow series and some comic books and stuff later on?
I loved it all because, that came actually even before I had got to play the Crypt Keeper, obviously. There was more new stuff with Creepshow. Obviously, they've tried to make more and more new stuff that's in the main vein of Tales from the Crypt. But for me as a horror fan, the more the merrier. But I loved it. But there's, the one thing about Tales from the Crypt, I always wondered what it was about Tales from the Crypt that I loved more than anything. It just had its own identity that was different. The comic book, of course, had the Crypt Keeper, the Old Witch, and the Vault Keeper, which I loved as a kid. It kind of tied you in because those were characters that let you know that this was supposed to be fun. That it's not just supposed to be scary or creepy or whatever. Excuse me. So many of the different horror anthologies or anthology shows don't have that identity to them that this one had. And then when we made the TV series, they were so hell-bent on wanting to make the Crypt Keeper fun, and obviously getting Kevin Yeager, who had made Chucky, to come in and make the puppet was, that was the first great thing that happened in terms of the Crypt Keeper being the identity of our series. And Kevin looked for a long time for the voice. They gave him the job of also trying to find a voice that matched for his puppet. And so I was doing another series on HBO called First and 10, where I played a Bulgarian field goal kicker. So they knew that I did voices and characters and that kind of stuff in my stand-up. And so they brought me in to meet with Kevin, and I started doing what you know now as the Crypt Keeper's voice for him. And he was like, I could see he was like, sitting there and been listening for days, and he saw that, and he was like, because he was recording, he's like, and he starts laughing, and I start laughing. I'm like, great, the Crypt Keeper laughs at his own jokes, and that's where I think maybe because I had read the comic books as a kid, I understood that it was supposed to be fun and funny. I think a lot of the other people were coming in and trying to make him like scary and creepy. And
you understood he was amused with himself.
Yeah, he's creepy because he's amusing himself over death and that kind of stuff. And that's the fun thing about it. So I think that, to answer your question directly, like I said, the more the merrier when it comes to horror. I love it if it's successful and it's good. But I think that Tales from the Crypt is unmatched just in the fact that it has its own identity with the Crypt Keeper and based on those comic books. I mean, you pick up one of those comic books and you look through the comic books, it looks like a storyboard for a movie, you know? In fact, we used, on the series, we used some of the comic book stories all those episodes except the Three Pigs, which was the last episode, were all based on one of the comic stories from the EC Comics, whether it was Tales from the Crypt, Truth is in Tales, Tales from the Vault, all these different comic books that were EC Comics. And we actually used some of the frames of the comics as storyboard to set up the look of each scene, which was kind of cool.
Do you know why they ended the show with
Well,
a cartoon that wasn't part of the comics either?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I just wanted to try something fun. They had come in and they wanted to do a fairy tale. They wanted to, now that they were doing like Tales from the Crypt cartoon and they were doing all kinds of fun stuff, we thought it would be fun, since the Crypt Keeper was a storyteller, to do some kind of fairy tale. And they had thought, I think at first they had thought of doing like Little Red Riding Hood or one of these was going to be one of the episodes. And then they got Bill Cobb, who I had worked with many times on Eat the Cat and the Terrible Thunder Lizards and some really cool cartoons over the years. And Bill said, they were like, hey, Little Red Riding Hood's just not working out like the way we thought it would be, in terms of the story, that'd be fun. And he goes, well, what about the Three Pigs, We'll get some good voice actors in here, we'll do it, and they go, well, who should be the narrator? He goes, what are you talking about? I got the Crypt Keeper, he's the best narrator you could have. So that's how that came to become done. The last season wasn't originally, 7th season wasn't originally supposed to be there. Back then nobody was making that many episodes for cable. They didn't have very much money to make shows. The budget fell on the producers to come up with another way to have the shows made. In return, they got to keep the show once it was done, as opposed to the network owning the show, which they now do. If you look on HBO, you don't see any of their earlier shows because they didn't own any of them. Because they couldn't, but they didn't have the money to budget them themselves. Now all those cable networks are owned by the bigger networks or the bigger studios.
So that's why my first and 10 DVDs say CBS.
The reason it says CBS is they had sold the rights to do it with CBS. We did. First and 10 was my first series. It was done on HBO. It was about a football team, and it had the identity that HBO always had, which was, sports, sex, and comedy. Obviously, there was brought in for the sex part. No, I'm kidding. And so we would shoot it both ways, with the language, with the nudity, without the language, without the nudity, that kind of stuff, because they knew they wanted to sell it for late night on CBS, in syndication, which of course would have been some nice residuals for me. But then the whole O.J. Simpson thing happened, and they pulled it off the air. And,
For those of you who don't know, OJ was a major part of that show.
He was not only a producer, but he was on the show. He played the general manager and that kind of stuff. So on the series, and they had other real football players on the show in years too. It was a great show. Don Gibb, who we all know from Revenge of the Nerds, was on the show. He played the linebacker. Come on, Tom Brady, let's go out, let's go to a party. But it was a fun show to do. But that's why the DVDs, which at that point have been licensed to CBS for late night, that's probably they tried to get some of their money back by selling them on DVDs.
Do you know where they put laugh tracks on?
They added that.
Why?
I do not.
It doesn't work.
It's stupid.
It
I don't
really
know.
doesn't. Yeah.
You're preaching to the choir.
And I
The show was originally a one camera.
It was a comedy, but it wasn't a sitcom.
It had serious scenes.
Yeah.
Guys were steroids trying to stay at, in the game of football and stuff like that, and got killed. And I mean, that kind of stuff. Obviously, again, I was part of the comic relief. Had the craziest storylines. But
I love your fiance.
oh my God, yeah, played by Valerie Lansberg, played my transsexual wife. She goes, just so you know, Zagro, I used to be a man. He goes, that's okay, I used to be communist. But some really bizarre stuff. Time to dance in the village.
Yeah, I thought it was having a fever dream.
I had no idea that
I
I watched
saw,
this once at First and 10, first of all.
I own it, I watched it. But I saw First Run, close to being First Run. No, when I was a child with my grandmother.
Oh, you saw it.
Yeah, me. When I was a child with my grandmother, and
It's on Tubi now, you can watch
I
it.
don't listen to it, but
But just to finish the little thought before we go on, was that when they edited them for regular television, I think they thought they had needed to pace it up or whatever, and so for part of play it more for the fun. And so some of the episodes they added a laugh track to.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God, this is not what we did.
no, and it's not the feel. And I thought, I was like, 'cause I was young when I saw it for the first time, and I'm like, and then 20 years later, I was like, was this there before?
No.
I don't think it was. I'm like,
You're
my
not
10-year-old,
actually-
my 10-year-old brain thinking
Your
it was
years,
wrong.
your years of drugs were not like yours.
Oh my God. Thank God. Yeah.
I'm a huge.
Okay, this darling. You'll be next.
I officially.
Go ahead.
I didn't know who you were pointing at. I'm a huge fan of the Crypt Keeper.
Thank you.
Your voice is the voice of what I remember from my childhood. I love Bordello of Blood. I love
Demon Knight?
Demon Knight.
Thank you.
Is the Crypt Keeper animatronic or a puppet?
He was both. He was both an animatronic and a puppet. That's a great question. There's a style of puppetry in the Japanese theater, the kabuki theater, called buraku. And if you've seen it, it's like the guys are in a black shroud and they're moving like almost a full-size puppet across the stage like this. Like one of them's moving the arms, the other one's moving the head. And the guys, even though there's people in these shrouds behind them, you don't notice them. You watch the puppet. That's the style of puppetry that they were using with the Crypt Keeper. One person, Van Snowden, worked the head back and forth and also worked the right hand. And then another actor, puppeteer, moved the left hand, so they would do the hands together like this and coordinate it. It took 3 guys to do the animatronic face. One actor, puppeteer named Brock Winkless was his name. He's no longer with us, nor is Van Snowden. Sadly, they both died pretty young, but had really, really great careers. I mean, they did some of the small dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, the puppet versions of them, and that kind of stuff. They're really amazing puppeteers. But his job was to do the mouth, and he had a headgear that when he would move the headgear on his head, it would move the Crypt Keeper's mouth up and down. But then he had this other thing with toggle switches to move this part of the mouth. So it'd be like, hello, creeps, how are you? The kind of thing. And then somebody else had to make the face and the eyes and the tongue move on the face. But to have that many different puppeteers all coordinating to make the one character come to life was amazing. That's how good they were. But so I could go into the studio and record for them, like a rock video. The rock video, it's usually the artist is lip syncing to the song that they pre-recorded. Well, this is no different. I would pre-record, my performance. They would see my performance, sometimes even record it so they could get kind of like what my movements were or what my body rhythms were. And then all the puppeteers could rehearse together. But at some point they got so good at it that, like Brock, who was just doing the mouth, the other guys could do whatever they wanted to do. But he'd sit there watching me, and I would slow him down just a bit. And he would go, slow him down just a bit. And he'd be like that far behind me, you couldn't even really really tell. So we could actually even do like live interviews with the Crypt Keeper. It was pretty amazing. They were pretty amazing puppeteers. I imagine nowadays they might try to do something with CGI or something, or but it you know, they could probably even make it look like it was a puppet so that it would fool audience. But to me, one of the best things about the Crypt Keeper and why so many people were attracted to it as kids was that it was a puppet. You know, when kids go to walk by TV and not want to, you know, hear that voice, see that face, and want to watch it no matter how scared you are of it. It's like a roller coaster. I like to use the analogy. It's like a roller coaster where people go, "Oh, let's go on the roller coaster." When you're a kid, you're like, "I'm not going on that thing. That's fucking scary." You know, I'm not going on that thing. And then you finally do go on one. You're like, "I want one bigger. I want one scarier." You know. And I think that you know, the Crypt Keeper is kind of like that. You know.
You know, I think back then there were two types of children.
Uh-huh.
The ones that liked cartoons and animation, that was not me. And the ones that liked the puppet shows. You know, the Fraggle Rock and all the Jim Henson shows. And me, I was in love with this Canadian show called Today's Special, which is creepy as fuck, but now I watch it. And I show people this, and they're like, and you know, and that's something that attracted me to it in the first place when I was 8 years old. It was a puppet, but I already loved creepy ass puppets, I find out.
I loved it all. I loved puppets, you know, I mean, Ed Sullivan's show back in the day, that show you how old I am, was a variety show on Sunday nights and everybody watched it. The Beatles were introduced on that show back in the day. But he had a little puppet named Tobo Gigio. He was a little Italian mouse. And you couldn't see the puppeteer because he was in the dark behind it. But he was a little, "Hello, lady, how are you?" He would squinch up his ears, and I was like, "Mom, I want a Tobo Gigio." You know, and then like Toy Bar, one of the stores, Toys R Us, whatever, had like a little version of Tobo Gigio that you could play with at home. But I loved ventriloquist dummies.
Yes.
I would stop, look, and laugh at some of those old, you know, Paul Winchell ventriloquist dummy movies were not only, I mean, there was always the creepy movies with the ventriloquist. In fact, ventriloquist dummy is with Don Rickles, Bobcat Goldthwait, is one of my favorite Tales from the Crypt episodes. But my mother knew that I loved those puppets, and so back in the day when you didn't get arrested for leaving your kid off at the store and go shopping, my mother would, there were 5 of us, my mother would leave us at the Toy Barn, which was next door to the grocery store. And the Toy Barn in Baltimore, where I grew up, was basically like a Costco. Not a Costco, like a Costco or a Home Depot. But it was all toys, so it was just like a big warehouse full of shelves of toys that you could go shopping for your kids for. And so she would leave us off, and she'd go grocery shopping, and then pick us up afterwards. Well, I would climb up on the shelf with a ventriloquist dummy and having little Jerry Mahoney talking to people as they walked by. And she found out that I was doing this on my 5th birthday. I woke up and there was one sitting at the end of my bed. She got me for my birthday.
Were you just
I
thrilled?
still have it. What's that?
Were you so thrilled?
Oh, I forget it. It was unbelievable. I just, I bring him in for show and tell. In fact, I remember bringing him in on St. Patrick's Day when I was probably like in 2nd grade or something. How old was you? Where are you at school? 5 and 6 years old? Kindergarten or 1st grade? Yeah, maybe kindergarten. But I remember bringing him in and taking like something around, like my mom had sold flat cloth, and I made like a kilt for him, and he had already had a green jacket, and he had red hair, and I brought him in for St. Patty's Day and did him with a little Irish accent. These are the little things that like made my career. Used to irritate the shit out of my family, and now they don't tease me because I make a living doing it, you know.
You're also sharing these stories about your mom.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
My mom was amazing. My mom used to make me costumes. She made her own clothes. She was just like one of those everything moms who do everything. But she, I'd be like, Mom, I'm going to dress up like a knight. Okay. So she would took an old piece of paneling from down the basement and cut a shield and took the old wood burning set. We used to make wood burning with it and like wood burn and griffin into it, So I had my own shield and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yes,
gosh, you know, I loved that. That was so much fun. You know, Elvira and I used to do all the commercials for them, and they had instead of a stunt show, which would be the rest of the year, they did like a slasher stage show where it was like a stunt show on stage for everybody to see. And it would, I don't know, they'd probably show it every hour, once an hour or something like that, like a stunt show. And the Crypt Keeper would pop up. I had pre-recorded stuff, and they had a floppy version of the Crypt Keeper pop up from the stage. And people would have their throats slashed, and the audience would be covered in blood. It was like a, you know, like a Gallagher concert or something. And it was so much fun to be standing in line, and the Crypt Keeper would be talking to you. And you know, but they had licensed it from the guys to the show when my guys had the licensing to the show. And the only reason that they don't do it, well, you know, once they got established, they didn't want to pay for any of that stuff anymore. You know, it's like they get cheap. It's like, last time I went to Universal Horror Nights, I was so looking forward to it. They didn't hire all those actors. Instead, they just had a bunch of people dressed up like The Walking Dead. And it's like, I get it. Walking Dead is very popular, you know, and you own it, you're advertising it. But it's like, I want to see all the other stuff. You know, I don't just want to see a bunch of zombies. You know, when zombies can't move fast, they don't scare you. You know what I'm saying? But so it was a lot of fun. But maybe one day, we've never been able to get the rights back from EC Comics to do more stuff with Tales from the Crypt. You know, as I was telling somebody this morning, you know, after 30 years, we were doing a show. You know, the producers that produced the show, the guy who used to do, you know, all the merchandising for us is no longer with us. You know, I mean, people, you know, I was young when I started doing the show. They were old. But, you know, obviously they did some really cool stuff over the years, but it's a shame we don't have the opportunity to make more stuff. Maybe one day. I don't know. I just keep praying. You know, most of us, this happens all the time in our business, by the way. A franchise winds up in somebody else's hands, and like they wanted to do another version of Tales from the Crypt, but they didn't have access to the puppet that we had. You know, because that belonged to my producers, but they couldn't do anything new with the puppet because they didn't have the rights to Tales from the Crypt anymore. So it was kind of a catch-22 situation. But I love doing stuff live myself. I mean, I started in the theater performing on stage. You know, I had shoulder surgery. People are like, "What happened to you?" I go, "Probably falling down the steps 8 shows a week for laughs in some show that I did or something." You know, trying to do the Jim Carrey School of Funny. I don't know. You know, beat the crap out of myself, and I'm paying for it now. But you know, it's like you know, Kane Hodder obviously was a stunt guy on top of an actor. You know how he beat himself up. Well, the funny guys beat themselves up pretty much the same way, doing a lot of stuff like that too. But I love performing live. I used to have a street back in the day when I lived in New York and I first started doing theater. It didn't pay very much. It still doesn't. You know, I made more money street performing. I used to street perform in front of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and they had these big steps that came down from the museum. And it was right on Fifth Avenue, so there was all this stuff happening that I could make fun of. I'd put on whiteface and I'd I'd climb the building across the street. And I'd hang a banner, "Now here in John Kassir." You could see it from 2 blocks in either direction. And people would come sit on the steps and I would do a show. Pass the hat. I made more money doing that, trying to survive in New York before I ever made it, you know. 5-6 years, I supported myself through low budget theater and street performing. Yeah.
What was your experience on Star Search like? And do you have any bad demand stories?
Oh my God, that's a great question. I was just actually, thinking about that. That's funny you said that because literally my rise into the television industry came from Star Search. And for those of you who don't remember Star Search, it was like the original, so you think you have a talent or whatever, show. So you think you have, that was a Freudian slip. But they had actors, and they had comedians, and they had singers, and they had bands. spokesmodels, you know, on the dance floor show, and you competed against other people in your own category for $100,000, which was, you know, early 1980s was, you know, that was a nice prize money, you know. So that was completely off the radar of my brain, but I had gotten in an off-Broadway show. It was a musical about stand-up comics, and how many people know Dreamgirls, the musical Dreamgirls, which is about these three singers and how they come together and they become famous, and you know, and it's a musical. Well, this was similar, but it was about stand-up comics. It was a musical, and it starred me along with Scott Bakula, who was just starting out. You know, Scott from Quantum Leap and from you know, CSI, one of these great shows, and another guy, Jerry Colker, and I played the kind of like an Andy Kaufman kind of very kind of suicidal, weird comedian, you know, who did jokes about death, you know, stuff like that, which was kind of foretelling of me winding up being a crypt keeper. But he'd come out on stage dressed up like a monk and pretend to hang himself, and then tape record the audience to actually walk off, you know, stuff like that. And so I was doing the show as a hit on Broadway. Finally, I was in something that everybody started to know who I was, at least in New York. And these people came up to me after the show and they said, "We want you to be on Star Search." And I go, "Well, I know what that is, but what do you want me to do?" I go, obviously I'm in a musical, I can sing, but I can't sing like Sam Harris, who was on the show at the time, killing it. I mean, this guy could sing. I mean, I was like, I can't sing like that guy. They go, no, why don't you come on as a stand-up comic? And I said, you know, I'm not really a stand-up comic, I'm playing a stand-up comic. They go, well, you can win $100,000. I'm like, fuck, have you seen my act? You know, I was like, I'll be working on it tomorrow. So I went on the show, and I had done sketch comedy, and I had done street performing, and I used to do like the talent shows with my buddy Fred. We'd do the morning announcements in high school, and I would do like the Wizard of Oz in 2.5 minutes, you know. As mayor of the Mexican City, the county of the land of Oz, what's that? That's the castle of the Wicked Witch. Oh, Dorothy's in that awful place. Oh, I hate to think of her in there. Alice, we got to get her out. I got a plan to get in there, and you're gonna lead us. All right, I'll go in here with Dorothy. Wicked Witch or no witch. The gods or no gods is just one thing I want you fellas to do. What's that? Talk me out of it. They said you have to do 2.5 minutes. I go, shit, you know, I'll just go on and I'll do like the Wizard of Oz bit, and then if I win, I'll come up with something else. You had to keep coming up with stuff, and so I kept winning. And the next thing I know, I'm like in the semifinals. I'm going up this comedian that had been playing the clubs for a number of years, but nobody knew who she was yet, named Rosie O'Donnell. And then I beat her in the semifinals, and then I beat this guy who had been playing the clubs, but nobody knew who he was yet. Sinbad in the finals. Next thing I know, I win $100,000. They're like, you're gonna open, you know, Tom Jones is a guest. They had guest celebrities on all the time. They had, you know, everybody from Bill Cosby. They had dancers. They had Jamie Farr, and they had Tom Jones on it. Tom Jones was like, oh, I'm a comedian. He's gonna open for me in Vegas. And they're like, oh my God, you're gonna open for Tom Jones in Vegas? I'm like, I can't open for Tom Jones in Vegas. You're like, why not? I gotta go fucking act. I've just been making this shit up as I've been going along. So they're like, I go, how long do you have to do as an opening act? They go, 20 minutes. I go, oh, I can, you know. So I went and took all my bits and I put them together into this idea that I was a guy who was addicted to television and I could change channels on myself, you know. And I got up there like it was Alcoholics Anonymous, meaning, you know, trying to fight the urge to channel TV shows. And, you know, I wound up opening for the Temptations and the Four Tops on their TNT tour and Lou Rawls. I mean, like 5,000 people, you know, because I came from the theater didn't unnerve me to get up and do, work in front of a huge audience. It was actually harder to play than comedy clubs where like people are like heckling you and shit and drunk. It's kind of like they're a captive audience, you're captive on stage. Street performing, at least if something didn't work, there was something else that I could go to immediately that was happening over there. So, from there I started getting a bunch of different sitcoms and that kind of thing, and that launched my television career. So, it was a pretty cool thing. Still got the $100,000 socked away somewhere. But I remember for years that McMahon would always send me a Christmas card. I'm sure he sent it to anybody who went on the show or whatever. He was really a nice man. But it was really funny. I tell this story about how, like I'll take photos with people. When you guys buy a photo or something, you do or a photo op, and I take a picture with you. You notice I do the group keeper laugh next to you, so you like, whatever to make you react. I think McMahon used to tickle you when you took a picture. You'd be standing there just before they take the picture. He'd tickle you, and you'd be like, I guess because you just got tired of seeing photos of people like being serious or not having a good time, whatever. So that was his thing, tickle you.
I love it.
Oh my God, he was such a great guy and an adorable guy. Johnny Kassir used to tease him about, his drinking.
Yeah.
And I never saw him like drunk, but he always had a glass of wine backstage, man. They'd hear the cork pop in his dressing room. Time to start the show.
I went down an Ed McMahon rabbit hole once.
Did you really?
Last year.
For what?
There's a thing online that Ed McMahon, the Mandela Effect, never worked for a publisher's clearinghouse and blah, 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 right? But I remember him saying it in an interview with Tom Green like 20 years ago, so I was wanting to find it. Then I found this other interview. I did find it, by the way. He did say it. And this other interview, and I just went down this 3-hour-long YouTube Ed McMahon rabbit hole, and I learned a lot about the man. And I developed a great respect for him, and I didn't know anything about him personally. But wow! And then I talked about it on the podcast, and then I kind of jumped the weirdest rabbit hole, guys. You're never going to believe it.
When we took Three Guys Naked, which was the name of the musical that I did, Three Guys Naked from the waist down, people were like, was it gay review in the village? She was like, no, it's a metaphor for how you felt from the audience when you're bombing. So that was the name of that musical about stand-up comics called Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down. And when we were redoing it, and it was going to be done in LA, they asked me, because they go on the Tonight Show, in the play, they go on the Tonight Show, that's what breaks open their careers. And they go, can you get Ed McMahon to do the intro? Like, coming up, the 20 guys, and I go, I'll ask him. And I asked him, he showed up in the sound studio and put it down for me for free. It was like the nicest thing. What a nice man. I'm glad you asked me about him, because I rarely get the time to think about him. He lived in the Marina Del Rey, and had like the penthouse top of one of those circular buildings overlooking the water and that kind of thing. He'd always send a, like I said, I always get a Christmas card standing in his yacht with his wife and his kids.
I saw another question over here somewhere. Yes.
Tyler. Is that right? Yes. I try to remember everybody's name. Sorry if I don't, but when I get to write it down, sometimes I remember.
So what would have been your favorite, special guest or crossover episode, or
On Tales from the Crypt?
yeah, Tales from the Crypt, and did you expect for this to become the classic that it is today?
Obviously it was it was a classic in the comic book world already.
Right.
From the 50s and 60s. And because it was on HBO, and I had already been doing a show on HBO, which I thought nobody saw, although there were people who saw it so much less than if you were on a network show, that I didn't think people would see it. But about the time that Tales from the Crypt came on, because Tales from the Crypt was popular, it helped bring a lot more people to HBO. And then, of course, it was re-shown on Fox TV and then other places, and then sold as DVDs, et cetera, et cetera. So for that reason, I only thought it would be for like kids like me that had grown up on Tales from the Crypt. I didn't think that it was going to be something that would have lasted 30 years where kids were like, this is my gateway drug to horror. Which is just, it makes sense. Like we were talking about the puppet, the whole thing, it just makes sense. It's so accessible to, kids' sense of humor and their wonderment and everything else. And we had some of the best stars on that show. I would come down to the set if any of the wraparounds that we were shooting with the Crypt Keeper had somebody there, whether it was, Bobby sitting at the table, on the talk show with the Crypt Keeper, or Arnold, trying to pump up the Crypt Keeper. So I would be on camera so that he didn't have to play to a recording. And so I got to meet all those people. I mean, obviously as an actor, I was getting to work with all these different people anyway. But some of those people were like big stars, and to get to meet them and hang out with them on the set, that kind of thing was cool. But the one actor that blew my mind was Tim Curry, playing, in Death of Some Salesman, playing Winona and the mother and the father, who pulled a scam on Ed Begley Jr. Thank you. And so brilliantly. And he was nominated for an Emmy for that performance. And rarely did any cable series or actor performance on cable, just because it wasn't seen as much, get that kind of nomination for Emmys and that kind of thing. So that may be one of my favorite, if not my favorite, performance on Tales from the Crypt. Obviously, great performances by people like William Sadler, who not only was great in Demon Knight, but in our first episode, The Man Who Was Deaf, where he plays the executioner in prison. And then, of course, we had Malcolm, yeah. I think he might have done more than one. The Reluctant Vampire. Was he the Reluctant Vampire? Yeah. Gosh, just so many good ones. What's really weird is that 7th season, we were only supposed to do the 6th season. I didn't finish that thought before, but we were only supposed to do 6 seasons. And that Oils Well That Ends Well that I starred in was supposed to be the last episode. But I don't know where that wound up being shown. It may have even been one of the other seasons, but it started becoming popular in England, so they said, we want to see more. They go, well, it's expensive, we don't have the money to make more. They go, well, we'll come up with the money. So they went and shot it over there. If you look at the actors, and they're not my favorite episodes, because they didn't quite get the humor. They didn't get the humor that you don't need to gild the lily to play this kind of acting. You play it serious, it's already funny on top of it. They were like overacting it because they thought that's what we used to have to do for that style of acting, which is what they do over there, which is great, but that's not what this was. But the actors that wound up in that show, we didn't know who they were here, but they were already obviously good actors, and now they're huge stars, whether it was Ewan McGregor, or Daniel Craig, Emma Sands, Tim Roth. I mean, these amazing actors that are now like big, huge movie stars, stuff like that. The first time anybody over here saw them were like on Tales from the Crypt episodes. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
We have time for one more. Anyone? No? Okay, well, I wrap up then. Last chance.
Read more of the book.
Wait, I saw a question in the back. Maybe just raise their hand.
What's your favorite horror movie right now?
My favorite horror movie right now? Oh gosh. That's tough because I'm a real purist. I love the really fucked up ones like The Exorcist, where they feel like, you went to church and now you're going to hell kind of thing, Those ones really were very visceral, Rosemary's Baby and Exorcist and Omen, and those were the really scary ones to me. I like slasher films, but they were never really my bag, in terms of that. Gosh, it's a hard question now because some of them are hysterically funny, whether it's, Fridays at Freddy's and, or Art the Clown. I mean, it's so creepy, but it's just gross, I mean, it's creepy and I like watching it. You can't not watch it if you're into horror, but it's still, again, not my favorite stuff. Gosh, now, the Scream movies are fun because they make fun of horror movies, they're always fun.
Do you have a favorite, era? 80s, 70s, 60s?
What's interesting about the different eras is that they also were trying to make fun of what was going on politically.
Yeah.
Like back in the days where we were all fighting about atomic bombs and stuff, there was stuff like The Blob and Attack of 50-Foot Woman and that kind of sci-fi stuff. And then of course Women's Lib was coming, the next thing Jamie Lee Curtis is the only one who survives, in a horror movie and women power and that kind of thing, which is kind of cool. I mean, it would be fun to kind of see a political horror movie now. That would be fun. What would be really fun to see is a horror movie like Housewives of Beverly Hills. Called like Dead Housewives of Beverly Hills. And they're all being killed by the plastic surgeons and shit. And I'm sure they'd be into it.
That'd be so funny.
Yeah, or Fixer Upper. Keep finding dead bodies and they're trying to do, Chip and Joanna Gaines are trying to redo a home and it's haunted. And Chip's like, it's demo time. It's like, he comes out with his arm pumping blood out of his lost arm and Joanna Gaines, what happened, Chip? First time, Chip Gaines is speechless.
Beetlejuice on steroids.
Yeah.
Right? Amazing.
I'm sorry I don't have an answer for that because it's just so hard to think of ones that have really crushed it recently where I'm even the Roger Corman stuff is classic. I watched that as a kid. I mean, the Universal Horror Monster movies were my favorite as a kid. Anything with a Theron, But, the Roger Corman stuff, especially with Vincent Price, whether it was, House of Wax or, The Tingler, Mask of the Red Death. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite remake of an old classic?
Oh gosh. The horror stuff is hard because, I've been waiting for them to make another good Frankenstein movie. I loved Poor Things. I thought it was about as classic as any horror movie you could make, but it was beyond a horror movie, obviously. It had a lot of different levels to it that were it was kind of like Terry Gilliam meets Frankenstein meets Forrest Gump. It was like, if you haven't seen it, it's pretty amazing performances, but also just the art direction is beautiful and that kind of stuff. But I'm just not that as attracted to some of the horror stuff that I see these days as what I used to have. The Exorcist remake was pretty good, but it just couldn't touch the original. I love the fact that horror movies continue to use practical effects because those hold up. I mean, how many times have you watched a movie and you're like, oh my God, look at the effects of this, and then two years later you look at another movie and you go back and see that other movie and the effects look like they were hand drawn on the screen compared to what they are now. The practical effects always hold up. I mean, you go see Night of the Living Dead, and there's a little girl with a trowel, and just the sound effect of her stabbing. They probably went to the butcher and got guts from cattle or something, and they're walking around and rage, whatever. And that's as visceral as anything that you're gonna get, I know I'm a hard audience when it comes to horror because of that, but shit, it's weird what's popular now. But I love that it appeals to younger kids, and people are letting their kids go see it. So
Yes.
that's fun stuff. I mean, I love stuff like Goosebumps. Goosebumps is great because it's kind of timeless. I got to do some spooky character voiceover stuff from the Goosebumps movies and that kind of thing. I love, the Ghostbusters stuff is fun. Again, because it was so new and so different when the first one came out, there's no way you're going to ever have that feeling again from one of the new ones. But I got to do like the little mini marshmallow guys in the last one. I didn't work on this new one, and I did a lot of the subway ghosts and stuff in the all-female cast one, which was kind of fun and cool. I'm always looking for that kind of thing to work on too, whether you get to do, Hellraiser movies and stuff like that are kind of fun. Yeah.
Read us some stories.
I'll say a couple
Just
of
comes
jokes.
out with that.
Why did the mortician leave a pail on the sidewalk? So nobody would kick the bucket. What has 4 legs and flies? A dead dog. Well, that doesn't make me laugh. I really love that. What goes, how hell, clock. Santa Claus laughing his head off. Oh, okay. What is the most popular TV show among ghouls? Name that tube. Why was George Washington buried at Mount Vernon? Because he was dead. Okay. Okay, no, that's not good.
I didn't say it was a good book, guys.
That's kind of funny. Did you hear about the runner who wore white so that cars could see him at night? He was run over by a snowplow. That's a Jeremy Renner joke, actually. Did he get hit by a snowplow? God bless him, he made it, thank God. Heavy metal music promotes violence. Every time I play a Metallica album, my father hits me. All right, that's it, folks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for showing up on Sunday. I really appreciate it.
You guys were a wonderful audience for a bunch of dead people. Excellent. Thank you guys. Thank our host and our and the Thank you. I do. I love it already. Yeah, it jockeys between really bad and really good ones. It's really fun. That's right. Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. Good to tell.
You wouldn't think they would. Bullseye plus focus and vision. I love it. Thank you. Were you really? Thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate it. Oh, thank you. Both my same week.
Yeah, 3 or 3.
I missed that one.
Well, I didn't